Hey, the sheriff is on this.
Namaste, sentient being, citizen of Gotham. It is Sunday, August 30th, 2015. Thank you for stopping by and tuning in. Hope all of you are doing well. Activist post, The Illusion of Choice. 90% of American media controlled by 6 corporations. Many know this, however, many do not. They think that all these news programming that we are privy to, so to speak, or that is pushed onto us, are these different entities, and they're all separate, and they're all bringing us the news, and it's not the truth. As usual in our reality, our delusional reality that's put forth onto us, there's one conglomerate, ultimately, the top of the pyramid, that controls all the other entities below it, and it keeps fracturing as it goes down the pyramid. So the same company that owns all the corporations, and they say it's 6 corporations that own this, but you know what? There's one corporation that owns the 6 corporations. And these news corporations own other things, like other companies such as retail environments, which would be apparel or food or whatever. Or a media corporation can also own McDonald's and Chuck E. Cheese, and also, Pro-Ked shoes, and also, Ivory soap. They're all part of one conglomerate that owns 3 or 4 or 5 or a dozen other ones that are all under that. And then under that dozen, there's, hundreds, and under that hundreds, there are thousands. So they all come from one thing. It's ultimately one corporation, which is probably owned by the 12 or 13 families that supposedly rule the world, and they are garnering all the money and pulling it in, whatever you want to call it, making it, stockpiling it, hoarding it, whatever you want to call it. So that's what this comes from, basically. And these 6 corporations that are run by one corporation, again, are putting out fear-mongering. They're putting out sensational videos. They are putting out brainwashing, coding, all different types of stuff, subliminals, whatever you want to call it. They're doing many things, and unfortunately, too many of the sheeple believe that these newscasting programs are actually news, when all it is sensationalism, which really is propaganda, and it's usually political propaganda, and they push that out to control the masses and brainwash them, and it's very effective, which is why they do that, just like they do that through the television, or the conditioning box, as I call it, as well as music. Most music is conditioning. Not everything is always all or absolute, but most of the music out there, especially pop and especially hip-hop, and they use rock a long time, was heavily laden with subliminals, and also Satanism as well, which it still is today. Most things have a tremendous amount of Satanism in them, as well as Freemasonry, and a lot of them have satanic Freemasonry, which is referring to the 31, 32, and 33 degrees of Freemasonry, which are the highest 3 degrees in said subject. Nevertheless, this article is by Vic Bishop. It is worth repeating again and again that the bulk of America's mainline media is owned and controlled by a mere 6 corporations, and as I would interject or add on to that, which is owned by one corporation, one conglomerate. This, of course, means that unless you're already consciously avoiding these mainline media sources, then most of the news and entertainment that makes it onto your screen and into your mind, which is more important, comes from a small pool of corporate offices or sources, all of which play important roles in delivering propaganda, social programming, which is conditioning, and perpetual crisis narratives to the public, which is what they're always putting forth: doom and gloom, fear, you're about to die, be prepared, be vigilant, if you see something, say something, if you notice this person doing that, let us know. It's all this very angst way of living. Most people that I find in my life are very nervous. I have a tendency to speak nervously, in the sense of manically, when I'm reading these things, because I'm trying to do it in a faster meter, meaning I don't want to ramble on for 30-40 minutes because people won't watch it. The more I talk, the longer the video gets when I discern and parse things, which is sometimes why I kind of limit it, or if I don't limit it, I speak in a faster manic sense, and that's the only reason why I speak manically. As you can tell, that I can talk very calmly, and this is more my normal voice, but at times when I start reading and I'm talking a lot, I make a conscious decision I'm talking a lot, so I need to speed up so the video doesn't turn into a 45-minute rambling, which it wouldn't be rambling because that would mean it would make no sense. But anyway, so the conglomerates are General Electric, News Corporation, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS, all Freemason companies and arguably satanic Freemason companies, especially News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. Maybe General Electric isn't into Satanism, but I would argue that they are. All are corporations that had their own shady histories, dealings, and suspicious actors, Disney being widely regarded as an occultic enterprise, which is based in Nazism, eugenics, and Satanism, aimed at warping the minds of children with disturbing subliminal imageries. You can look online, Google Disney illustrations. You will find out that almost all of their main characters, are pictures. They start out as penises or vaginas or breasts, and they turn them into Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck. Always the case. Not to mention they have tons of subliminals in the background. In Disney, they have the word sex, everything. They have, bisexual, get sex, sex is good. They have very phallic symbols in penises and vaginas laden in their work. And they just try to say, oh, no, we didn't do it. Well, that's all purposely done, because if you know anything about marketing, which has to do with a lot of commercials, because commercials are nothing more than marketing, everything is purposely done. Every color, every hair, it's meticulously done to send a message, because that's why it's called marketing. It sends subliminal messages to your brain to get you to buy things. That's why when you go into stores, especially shopping malls and stuff like that, like you're going to buy, food, and they'll have a toy section or something, or they'll put all the goodies and stuff at kids level, like, 3 and 5 years of age, a couple feet off the ground, which therefore a grown-up would have to bend over to get, but a child, it's right in their eyes. Just like all the, as they call it, impulse buys at the register whenever you go, especially in retail, but anything, shopping marts, they put all this impulse stuff right near the register, chocolates, cookies, cake, ice cream, sodas right there, magazines. So they go, I'll get this magazine. It's called impulse buying, and they do that purposely, which is underscoring my point. One of these companies is also the 12th largest United States military contractor. Oh, isn't that surprising? And they say, it's no surprise that so much of our entertainment centers around the glorification of war and violence. But surveying what is available for consumption in the mass media, it is easy to see what type of society these 6 corporations are helping to construct. They have the power to warp reality by calling stage shows reality shows. Ideas which don't support mainstream narratives and the consumer agenda are omitted. The story about independent people overcoming strife without dependence on government are seldom, if ever, elevated. Read 11 tactics used by mainstream media to manufacture consent for the oligarchy. The promotion of shallow, materialistic, egocentric values and the obvious dumbing down of American population is coming from these 6 corporations. Think about it. These are the companies that glorify consumption, obedience, ignorance, the hypersexualization of youth, which is also known as pedophilia, the glorification of war and government surveillance, and so on. The advertisers that support these media companies have tremendous sway over what makes it on the airwaves. They help to control public perception through conditioning, mind control, subliminal messages. The bottom line is that the corporate media is a behemoth of special interests and mind controllers. So much of the human story is omitted in this capitalistic, for-profit environment scheme like this, which is why now, more than ever, the independent alternative media is such a gem for humankind. One thing about capitalism, people think it's a great thing. It is not. It is all about materialistic. It is actually a satanic or a Satanist tenet of subject versus object. It's always talking about the satiation of ego, which is something you want to remove. You would like to remove one's ego, not to the point of oblivion. I'm not talking about being a nihilist. What I'm saying is you would like to reduce ego, because ego is what gets people into trouble in this life, and everything is ego-based, which is what Satanism is about. Doesn't mean we are practicing Satanism or Satanists ourselves, but we are still complicit in that ideology by carrying out the beliefs of said subject. The infographic below was produced in 2011 by frugaldad.com, and although there have been some changes to the information since then, the landscape of American media is well represented here compared today to 1983, when the industry was occupied by some 50 independent media companies or corporations, same thing. So 6 into 50, and 9 times is 54. So it's at the very least 8.5 times more supposedly independent companies compared to today. It's unbelievable. Some changes to the graphic noted by Business Insider. Note the infographic is from last year and is missing some key transactions. GE does not own NBC or Comcast or any media anymore, so the 6th company is now Comcast, and Time Warner doesn't own AOL, so Huffington Post isn't affiliated with them. With such tremendous global reaches, or such global reach in all forms of media communication. These corporations help to shape our world by providing coverage of our lives, analysts of the world, entertainment to pass our time and inspire our minds, and even distraction and occupation for our children. The distraction and occupation of our children is actually subliminal messaging, which is actually conditioning of our children, especially the hypersexualization, and which would be pedophilia. And all of this analysis of the world is political propaganda and entertainment to pass on or inspire minds, which is really distraction to get you off of what is actually going on in the world, so you believe all the propaganda that you ingest. Talks about media has never been more consolidated. 6 media giants now control a staggering 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. George Carlin used to talk about this a lot. I'd recommend watching some of his shows, especially Do It In Again, which was at New York City, but probably the last 3 things that he did for HBO, which you can find on the net. You can usually find them on YouTube. You can find the whole thing. Talk about radio stations. In 1995, the FCC forbade companies to own over 40 stations, yet Clear Channel owns 1,200 stations. Does that make any sense? Talking about back-to-back nonstop playing, listening to Mrs. Robinson for the first time, age 3, listening to Mrs. Robinson 32 years later, age 5. Talking about movies, it's probably 2 or 3 companies that own the movies, which is owned, again, by one company. AOL spent $124 billion to buy Time Warner in 2011. That's 6 times what Congress funded to rebuild Iraq. They have 2 links at the bottom of this. Whoops, sorry. 2 links. Sorry to make you a little sick with this fast scrolling. This is one of them. The infographic created by Jason at Frugal Dad shows that most of all media company from the same 6 sources. That's consolidated from 15 companies back in 1983. So you're not talking more than 30 years ago, less than 30 years ago. The infographic is from last year and is missing blah, 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 which we already read. It's the same graphic here. And then this is going on the 25 biggest defense companies in America. President Eisenhower warned of the rise of the military-industrial complex in 1961 in farewell address. It's impossible to know for sure if he was thinking of companies like these selling about $250 billion in arms every year, but it's possible. Making billions has become a United States specialty, with 47 American companies filling the top 100 grossing slots in the world. The following numbers are put together by SPIRI, whatever, S-I-P-R-I, SPIRI, whatever, based on numbers from 2010, which is 5 years old at this point, ranks in terms of sales and offer an unbiased view of how big business war has become. Too bad they're 5 years out of date. Talking about CACI International, $2.3 billion, total profit $117 million, employs 13,000 people. So that's a lot of money for a very small company in the sense of people. 24 Goodrich, 2.2, 579, 16,000 people. Still a small number of people, and even a huge number. This was, oh, sorry, I thought it was 22 billion for a second. Sorry, virtually the same in annual sales. Has a few thousand more people. 2.4 Dyna Group, unbelievable. Navistar Defense, 2.4 billion. Profit $223 million. Unbelievable, these amounts. 2.5, 125 million. Profit 10,000. 2.6 Hewlett Packard, 3,250 people, 325,000 people almost. Textron, 2.7, 86 million. These are good, things. But always, as I say, take these graphics, these ratios, these percentages, graphs, always with a grain of salt, because we don't know exactly where these numbers are coming from, so you can only be presumptuous by accepting them. But just going off that, 2.9 million, 2.9 million, and it goes on. So they list all these companies that are industrialized, that make tons of money. It's just unbelievable how this goes on. But anyway, just wanted to point out information that's going on and basically underscore the fact that the media is obviously controlled by one company that has a fraction of 6 corporations underneath it, which rule the airwaves, which people ingest political propaganda or mendacities. Thanks for stopping by, tuning in. Be well, stay balanced. Namaste.